Good evening and welcome to TravelGram. Today we come to you from US and from India. We have as our guest today Nancy Novogord. Nancy used to edit one of what is considered one of the world's best travel magazine, Travel+Leisure. I have read and followed her writing, her magazine for years on end today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have Nancy on TravelGram today. Welcome to TravelGram, Nancy. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Deepali.
To start with, I wanted to ask you is this, you have, as an editor and as today as somebody who owns Culturati, who runs it, who travels the world, helping people discover and explore parts of the world they've probably never seen before, many a times not even heard before. What has been your experience with Culturati Travel Design? What has been your experience about how experiential travel has evolved?
Well, I saw experiential travel evolve during my 21 years at the magazine. For Americans, the world kind of opened up. Travel for many of us had been to the European capitals and kind of safer travel, or maybe hiking in Switzerland. And, it wasn't, our consciousness did not include wonderful experiential places we now know. I mean, from Africa to India to China. And I more and more during my time at the magazine, which began in 1993, I saw people interested in visiting places that were exotic and remote, and having experiences that were real, that were authentic and less mitigated by by travel people into an experience for Americans, something that could be rather genuine, that gave a real sense of the place.
Nancy, last 5 months have not been very conducive for travel, but it's been very difficult for the world in general. How have you seen life around you transform back there in the US, and how will this transform travel itself?
Well, I think, we're now in phase 2 of the pandemic. I think in the beginning, there was a sense that we will get beyond this soon. And I'm part of a company called Local Foreigner. I'm an independent affiliate of of a travel company that was started, a few years ago, 10 years ago, by a group of women who are very smart, they're young, and they have built up an incredible practice with very affluent Americans. And their clients were still booking in the beginning of the pandemic, hoping and made plans to go away this summer, hoping to go away in the fall. But as things have proceeded, some of these options are no longer available. We thought Europe would be open by, July or August, and of course it hasn't. And some places, some people don't even want to go to hotels out west if they're from the East Coast, because things are changing there in terms of the virus. So there is a pulling back now. But at the same time that's happening, that people are not as actively making plans as they were even, 2 weeks ago, because the recent news has been very disturbing. There is thinking about the future. And I know that, for instance, I am working on a trip to southern Italy that has a lot of interest, and it's for the second half of 2021. But I think it will take a while for people to feel the confidence that they had. I have a trip to Japan next year that has been moved once already. It was supposed to happen in March of this year. Now it's March 2021. but I think we'll move it again to the fall. So there's a certain element of uncertainty right now, which is not helping. Interestingly, though, and this is internationally, get a lot of communications from hotels on their health and safety procedure. They are trying very hard to maintain some business and to address these circumstances, whether with air filtration systems and cleaning practices, leaving a room empty for 24 hours after a guest checks out before the new guest comes in, waiters serving with masks and gloves, outdoor dining, lots more room service. There's a lot going on in the hospitality world, particularly I think in the US, but internationally as well, to present a sense of security to people who might be interested in booking.
But is that enough? Is the fact that, because we've also been hearing in India a lot of hotels telling us, oh, we have set up these systems and, we are incorporating technology. But on the ground, there's somebody who's been so closely associated as a magazine editor, as well as somebody who, who leads such a exciting venture. Is that enough? Are people likely to respond just to the fact that hotels or destinations are saying, "Oh, we've put up these protocols in place"?
It depends on the people. What we've seen is a lot of interest in private villas that are parts of hotels or independent. I think that there is more of an inclination to be somewhat isolated, even if you go to a resort property. I haven't heard much about city hotels coming back, but I know that resort properties are trying to provide people with a sense of security by saying, if it's a large property, we're large enough, you can spread out. This is true of certainly the Amman resorts out west in the United States. And it's true of a lot of ranches and lodges that are very popular in this country, where they're doing the most with the open spaces they have. But is it enough for the consumer? I'm not sure. As I say, at least in the US, we're in, and I hear it's going on in Europe, and I know the problems remain serious in India, we're in phase 2. And people, there is a somewhat of a chiseling away of confidence. But I believe at the same time, there is pent-up demand. We're actively using this time to inform ourselves of possibilities, of changes in destinations, in hotel properties, and so that we'll be ready to book. A big season for us in the US is, of course, what we call festive, Christmas and New Year's. And while there was interest in it a little while ago, it's leveled off a bit. So I don't know. People are staying home. We're facing a big problem right now of what to do with children, with schools reopening in September or late August. And so that's part of the dialogue, and of great concern to people in the United States.
So, US, of course, is such a huge country. It offers a lot of, chances for you to self-isolate, even if you travel. A lot of destinations where there's no question of there being crowding. You can actually go to a great hotel and stay there and experience the countryside. This is not possible in a lot of other countries, particularly in Asia, particularly countries like Thailand or India, which makes it very difficult, which may have pockets of isolation, but which is particularly in India. I mean, pockets of isolation, but not that well put out for social distancing to such large extent. How do you see, travel evolving in Asia and in India? If you could focus a little bit on these, and somebody who's also who's covered the subcontinent, who's also covered Asia, who's brought people down here. How do you see things changing for us, or panning out for us?
Well, one, there are opportunities certainly in the countries you mentioned, in Thailand and India, to go to places that are offer more space. And I think that the current circumstances will ultimately be good for these destinations. And I think that in terms of experiential travel and exploration, perhaps this will grow as a result. Certainly the gateways to these experiences are through the main cities of Bombay and Delhi and Bangkok and elsewhere, but I do think that the trend toward discovery will continue and grow. I don't know. I think that ultimately we will be able to deal with this, the current situation. There will be a vaccine, there will be better treatments. So we're in the eye of the storm right now, but I think that not everything, there is a future, and I think that hotels that offer a sense of space will certainly do better than those that are crowded in. And I do think people will come out of this with a new interest in various aspects of hotels that have not been so much under review on the part of the consumer. And some of this is cleanliness and openness to some extent. And I do think certain forms of hospitality will change, greetings, maybe handshakes will go away. I don't know. Right now there's a lot of plexiglass being used throughout to separate the customer from the staff, and ultimately that may disappear, but some of these border barriers and some of the more distant practices, I think, are here to stay.
That's a very interesting insight, and it probably tells us that we're still a little far away from still trying to figure out how to put the systems in place. I wanted to ask, you said something about your next trip likely to be to southern Italy. If your trip is already planned, would you like to offer some insight into what went into planning that trip? What were the things that you had to keep in mind? What were the protocols that you had to check while you were planning this trip? And what were the kind of questions that your clients put up to you, the ones who booked?
Okay. Well, this brings us to another topic, which is cancellation policies. Cancellation refund policies, because that certainly is very much an issue now in booking travel. So that first, of course, is the destination where we wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to go. One place I've been before and one place I haven't yet been, though I was supposed to visit in April, Basilicata in southern Italy. And the other is Puglia. And I knew the hotels I wanted to stay in pretty much. I also knew someone who was an expert who's based in Puglia, an Italian travel company that has been great to work with. So in putting together this trip, I proceeded on the basis of my own interests, which have to do with architecture and history and food and culture. And there's wonderful Baroque architecture in Lecce and Puglia. There are these wonderful cave dwellings in Basilicata. There's amazing food and olive oil in Puglia. So these were, you know, the normal touchstones I would work with. And the hotels were wonderful. But of course, we checked on the hotels and what they were doing in the pandemic, but we're hoping we're way beyond that by October of next year. And but most important, we did check on the cancellation policies. And I checked, and I was very sure that the supplier I'm working with in Italy had was very flexible, because I've had the experience of having to move trips. Um, and it can be difficult. So I think we're wiser now about how we approach travel, and flexibility and safety, health and safety are considerations they weren't before, even looking that far out, you know, over a year into the future.
That's interesting because Italy was so badly devastated, one of the first countries to be on the top of the pile as far as the COVID cases and the deaths are concerned. And if Italy can hope to open safely, I'm sure the rest of the world will get a lot of encouragement from that. Uh, I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of talk in India about how luxury travel will change I mean, someone told me just today that luxury travel will probably die down for a while, in the sense that people will have to rationalize what they can expect customers to pay. They may have to increase the kind of target audience, for instance, will change. So while luxury travel in India was largely for the older generation, even people who who were inbound luxury travelers were about 60 years of age. Even Indians who traveled in terms of luxury experiences were anywhere between 50 to and above. And he told me that, of course, we see a lot of rationalizing of cost happening, prices happening, hotel rooms, rationalization of cost. Also, we see a lot of younger people traveling more because they may be able to afford it a little better. I would like your, what does your experience say with that? How much do you think this is true, and how would you see that playing out across the world?
I have not seen a lowering of prices, and I've been booking, inquiring in many places about future bookings. I haven't seen that, certainly not in the United States. Um, but I don't think that's happened in Italy either. I do think that there has been a trend toward younger people with wealth traveling more, and maybe feeling a greater sense of security about travel now uh, than others, though perhaps not uh, so accurately in terms of their own vulnerabilities. But many of the clients that have booked through my affiliate firm, Local Foreigner, are younger. Um, uh, I I see that certain, well, supposedly, I mean, we all know that the most vulnerable population is 65 and over, and these are the grown-up baby boomers, and they're used to traveling, and they have the wealth, and they're retired. I think internationally, if there is a greater sense of precaution in this group, that could have very bad effects on hotels that deal with an international population and a lot of affluent Americans. I know the absence of affluent Americans has had an impact on hotels in the south of Italy, on the Amalfi Coast. And I think as things continue, and if Americans start to travel, when Americans start to travel, but if the older generations remains cautious, then that will have an impact.
So, how do you see, what do you think would be the trends, travel trends as they evolve today? That's one question, of course, which is a bigger question. But more importantly, for the years we've been hearing about slow travel, slow food, slow travel, slow living. Um, would you tell us what is your idea of slow travel, and do you think that taking root at this point of time? So both the travel trends as well as slow travel.
Well, I think slow travel is taking root at this point, because there are, I mean, in the United States, there are a lot of driving trips. Slow travel involves a search for places that have not been changed, and a desire to preserve the unique essence of these destinations, and to see them, but not to touch them in a way that is lasting. And I think, and it's a search for the traditional and the authentic, as with slow food, and uncovering what has always been there. And I think, yes, I think that this is what is going on now, is forcing people to take stock, many to appreciate the natural world, and the things that are kind of eternal around them. And I think travel will, uh, many trips will be organized with this thought of seeing something that is unchanged by time. And that's a very, that's a very positive impulse, actually, in a world that has changed so much and is changing rather radically because of what is going on globally with the pandemic.
Interesting. So which country or continent is best given to this kind of travel?
Uh,
What is
well,
your favorite destination for slow travel?
what is my favorite destination? I have, it, one of the challenges is finding places where you can really have slow travel. Parts of Italy, certainly, but there's a great, there has been an enormous influx of tourists and a lot of building, but there are towns that are pretty much as they were, that are wonderful, certainly in little corners of them, maybe in Tuscany, but elsewhere in Italy, in Umbria, and in the north and the south, there are places. But I think that wonderful in Africa. I mean, the problem is that destinations like India and Africa, which have so much that is traditional and rich, are more difficult for independent travel. And slow travel, I think, is really best when you can explore on your own. There are places in India I would love to explore, that I haven't been, that I think would be an opportunity somewhat. Hampi, I'd love to go there and see the monuments. I'd love to go to Shimla and see, experience nature there. But in terms of really slow travel and continents, I think that there are opportunities in Southeast Asia, but there are so many, one must be careful in choosing destinations, because there are resorts that have a sense of authenticity, but are not thoroughly so. And then there are places like Siem Reap, in Cambodia, which have been, you know, are wonderful, and the the monuments there, the ruins are magnificent. Yet there is it's so built up. There are so many hotels that it would be hard to do slow travel there.
So you will be glad to know that Hampi now has an airport about an hour away, and also a beautiful hotel. Maybe you'll be able to read it about it in Travelgram. We're planning to cover that. Our
I
first
did.
destination.
You know what? I did. And I saw, and I know about the airport, and that was always an issue because getting to Hampi was so difficult.
Yeah. So now, even now, of course, you have to go to Bangalore, and then from Bangalore, Hyderabad, and take a flight to Belur, and from Belur you can drive down to Hampi. I think I've been to Hampi. It takes about an hour and a half to do that. But yeah, it's closer now. You don't have to do that 7-8 hour long drive anymore.
Well, the unfortunate part of that is that more people will be visiting.
Yes,
So
that is true.
accessible slow travel becomes less possible.
Yes. Going further from here, what would your expectations from a destination or hotel be at this point of time? If you were to choose not just to take people to a country or a destination, even if you were to travel personally, what would you look for?
I would probably be inclined toward a hotel that I felt um, that that had uh, the capitalization to update its systems now. You know, I'm not so sure how I would feel about going to a charming little bolt hole at the moment. That said, I'm not looking for a huge resort, but I think I would feel most confident with either a brand such as Oberoi or Sujan or Taj or Aman that catered to somewhat affluent clientele. And this, what I'm saying, by the way, concerns me because I so much love a more basic and exotic experience, but at this moment I would opt for a sense of security in either the brand or the independent property.
So basically, branded hotels will do far better than, say, an independent property in terms of perception.
In terms of perception,
Yes,
in
yes.
terms of perception, I mean, yeah, but I would feel when I know the owner, I mean, or when I know the property, I went to a Hilya Fort the last time I was in India and adored it. And I would feel comfortable going there because it's so outdoors and I'd open windows and I know there's thoughtful management. So I don't want to say that I'm staying away from all more independent properties as a rule, but I would be very careful in making my choices.
So Nancy, it's a question I've been wanting to ask you. You've been a frequent traveler to India. We are opening up slowly. We are having different peaks, different points of time. But as we open up, where do you see India stand on the travel stake, on the global travel stake? I mean, do you see us recovering at some point of time? I mean, we're not even talking about, we were talking about these grand plans of increasing our tourism base, our inbound tourism, but now it's just even a matter of survival. Where do you see us standing?
Well, I can't talk about recovery until I know when places really will be open and when Europeans and Americans will feel a comfort level traveling to these destinations. But I certainly think India will come back, absolutely, because you have built. There has been such a huge development effort in India and hospitality that is on the highest level in the world. And because of the interest in discovery and experiential travel, I think India definitely will remain on the map. I think it could be a long road back, because perhaps places that are more known will provide a greater sense of confidence. I mean, India is such a vast country with such a vast population that there could be concerns, but I have seen a great interest in India among people I know. And certainly every writer who wrote for me at Travel and Leisure wanted to write a story about India, because people who are, you know, in the literary world, who are writers, who are artists, who are retailers, want to go to India because it's so rich, and who are food people, you know, there, you think it hits all the bases for, you know, modern drivers of travel in terms of cultural experiences, food, shopping, you know, discovery. I don't think India, I think that it may be a few years before you get back to a growth pattern, but you'll get there. I know.
It's good to hear that. How would you change the kind of experiences you offer in India? I mean, I did go through your website and what you do, and you have some amazing experiences. Would you change them? Would you transform them? Would you do something different?
You know, it's interesting that you asked that, and after our discussion of slow travel, I might do a bit more to having to do with discovery of places people haven't been. I think we have to wait and see, but we may very well emerge from this with a greater thirst for, you know, being in places that not so many other people go, both maybe because we'll carry away from this pandemic experience a concern about crowds, or and also a desire to kind of get to the bottom of things in places, to, you know, a greater respect for nature and environment, and for immutable places.
Absolutely. And if I were to ask you, what is your advice to India's tourism minister, tourism ministry, I shouldn't say minister, tourism ministry, about how and what they should do to attract international travelers back of course, once the international skies open up, once we open up travel back and forth, what would your advice be?
Well, I think that there has to be a message about not head-on message about safety, but a message about uh, that you can feel secure in India, that you know that you will be well looked after, that that India offers some of the finest hotel and travel experiences anywhere in the world. And I know a lot of the advertising, I was at least a commenter on India, the India tourism advertising campaigns when I was at Travel and Leisure. And a lot of them focused on the exotic, which is understandable because India is filled with that. But I think an element of a kind of undercurrent of security and being well looked after, and hospitality, superb hospitality, has to be mixed in with that. And you know, when I think of it, I've been out of Travel and Leisure now for 5.5 years, so though I still read all the travel magazines, but I may not be so aware of the evolution of the India campaigns. but I'm thinking that perhaps you have not um, celebrated the hospitality aspect of India enough. Because when I think I'm a very privileged traveler. I mean, through my time at Travel and Leisure and continuing, I've been to India twice since I left the magazine. It's really my favorite destination. Don't tell any other countries, but
Let's hear that.
but you know, when I think of the level of hospitality you offered and the luxury traveler, and how little it is recognized by globally. I mean, people are aware of brands like Taj and Oberoi, of course, but you know, this kind of superb, seamless service and superb hospitality, superb dinings is not so present. And I think maybe it needs to be more.
Fantastic. And Nancy, one main question I wanted to ask you as a woman who's travels solo very often, is, you know, women were now an increasing catchment, you know, for travel, for destinations, because there were more and more women traveling alone. Do you see this changing? Do you see the pandemic changing it in some way? Do you think women will be far more wary of traveling alone, traveling solo, given the amount of security, carefulness, everything else associated with it? Or do you think that's not going to happen? Do you think the whole segment of women solo traveler will keep on increasing?
Well, I think when you say solo, I'm not sure. I just want to check that you mean absolutely alone or women with
Yes, yeah.
absolutely.
Alone, or it could be alone, or it could maybe even be with friends. Yeah, say two, three
Okay.
friends
Well,
together.
I think what has happened is women with a friend or a group of friends um, have traveled more, and I think this will continue. You know, women are much more. I don't think the pandemic is going to make women more conservative about their own choices and lives. I think everyone is going to be more careful, but I don't think women more so because um, you know, women have been become used to traveling. And in fact, the trip I'm organizing to the south of Italy is for women.
Nice.
And it's for women. The one of the women who is signing up is married. Another uh, widowed, and another is married but kind of separated, and they want to get away. And they're, you know, and actually it's very interesting. One of them is a very good friend of mine, the married woman, and she has been dreaming of travel. She spends her whole life thinking about travel now. She lives in Georgia, and you know, but she's had quite an international life, and she wants to get out there, and the idea of going with a group of women delights her.
That's so good to hear. Tell me, what do you miss about traveling?
Oh, I miss everything about traveling. I miss the exposure to, you know, different people and different environments. And I miss, you know, I miss new experiences. And I miss visiting some friends in foreign places, in international places. You know, it's been a great pleasure for me when I return to a country like India and can see people I know at the same time that I'm uncovering new experiences. You know, I think travel is just such a force for good. It opens your eyes and minds, and I miss that infusion of new thinking and new visions. And I, you know, I miss being out in the world. Which, by the way, just to return to um, Culturati Travel Design, is how that was born, and how when I left Travel and Leisure, my biggest concern was having the world close in for me, not having the access I had had for some 21 years. And that's why I continued on and found a new way to have experience the world and a sense of access and connectedness. And this connectedness is key. And uh, in a way, I mean, just to come back to our circumstances, the pandemic that's global is a reflection of how connected we are now around the world. Connected by travel and connected by the news. I mentioned the hurricane here, and you're very well aware of hurricanes in the United States. I'm well aware of what's going on, of a certain part of what happens in India, but there's nothing. And so that makes the world a little less foreign to us. I think it makes it a little less frightening to go out into it. And it also kind of stokes your desire to get to see it in real life.
Absolutely. And just one more question that I would like to ask you is, how is the US opening up its travel segment? What are the experiences that you're gaining within the country? And at Culturati, what are your plans? What are people looking for? What are you thinking?
So the United States is opening up. Many places stayed open through the whole time. In fact, I would say most. Uh, but there coming a great deal of thought and effort has been put into preparing for travelers and in a safe way, and maintaining whether it's new technology or service, or opportunities for, as I mentioned, outdoor dining and for social distancing. There is a lot of that going on. In terms of what I'm thinking about right now, because this is what we can do in the travel world. I'm thinking about properties in the U.S. For travelers, and I'm also the Caribbean. Some parts of it are opening up, but mostly I'm looking toward the future and thinking about about international travel, which is my special interest. And by the way, I also do a lot of private travel, and I have a lot of things going on for clients next year, that including a trip on the Trans-Mongolian Express train, a very luxurious experience for a New York-based couple, or a charter of a yacht in the Mediterranean with visits along the coast in France and Italy. For a couple from Texas, a honeymoon in Thailand for people in Baltimore. I have a lot of trips that are to happen next year. So right now, I'm very eager to see our way to a solution, and so these people can travel. And I'm very eager to plan new things. I'm going to shortly be working on a trip to France. But it's great to have an opportunity to sit back and reflect. And I think I am going to come out of this better in many ways, and better prepared for planning travel. But and more rested. So
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to have you and for your really interesting insights. Thank you for being with us, Nancy.
thank you.
Wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay safe. Hope the storm settles if there is one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank